Hey everyone, it's John here from Untitled Hockey, back with another video. In this video, I'm going to predict all 31 NHL teams' compliance buyouts. So a huge hypothetical because we don't know if the NHL is going to grant compliance buyouts yet. But it's a possibility, and I'm going to predict all 31 teams. And of course, for a compliance buyout, for the people that don't know, it's very similar. It's basically the same structure as a regular buyout, but the huge difference is that it doesn't count against the salary cap, which is a huge difference. For teams that can afford to pay out a contract and it not count against the salary cap, that's a huge advantage. So I'm going to go through all 31 teams. Let me know your thoughts. Please subscribe if you are new and smash that like button. So we're going to start here with, we're going to go in alphabetical. So the Anaheim Ducks. So I think for the Anaheim Ducks, they have a few options. I mean, they could go in the direction of Adam Henrique, 5.8 and around that of a cap hit for 4 more years. That could be tough. And I mean, Cam Fowler, that contract could be tough. Silverberg maybe, but I think they might buy out that last year of David Backes. So it makes sense if the Anaheim Ducks are trying to turn it around, and Henry can still be a top 6 forward, so can Silverberg, and Cam Fowler's arguably their best defenseman. So overall, you want to keep the guys in the now, but I think going forward, it's a little concerning for those contracts for the Anaheim Ducks, but right now the smart move would be David Backes. The Arizona Coyotes, Derek Stefan. I think it's a very similar situation with Stefan. He has definitely regressed. 1 year left with a $6 million cap hit. They could go in the direction of Grabner, under $4 million last year as well. Or, hot take, maybe Phil Kessel. Some people have talked about it, $6.8 million for 2 more years. He got that retained off of the $8 million, 1.2 from the Leafs. So that's an option. I think Stefan would be my pick, and the Arizona Coyotes can compete in the playoffs potentially next year. So I think that could be the smart move. The Boston Bruins, I think John Moore could be the smart one here. When we're talking about depth defenseman, it's kind of John Moore. So he shouldn't be really making 2.75 per. I think it's 3 years left at 2.75, and John Moore was scratched for parts of the season. So I think that could be the move. Or they could maybe, I mean, this would ruin a relationship, but David Krejci, if they really wanted to keep Torrey Krug and they needed a decent amount of cap space, Krejci over $7 million for that last year. Is it a possibility? Yes. I think it's unlikely. I think they would go in the direction of John Moore. It just makes more sense, and it does clear up 2.75 for the next 3 years each. The Buffalo Sabres, I think this is an easy one. Kyle Okposo, 3 years left at a $6 million cap hit. Okposo basically, I mean, he's a better version of Matt Molson, but a 2.0 version, and he came in from the Islanders into Buffalo, and he just didn't meet those expectations. So I think Okposo would be the compliance buyout for the Buffalo Sabres. Milan Lucic, another easy one in my opinion. The Calgary Flames, when that trade was made, at just 3 years left at $6 million after this year, I think it's a no-brainer for the Calgary Flames. Carolina Hurricanes, this one could be tough. I mean, I've heard some people say like Jake Gardner. I think Jordan Staal, again, you don't want to ruin a relationship when you're talking about leadership, captains. I get that, and you don't want to ruin relationships for sure. But for a guy like Jordan Staal, the production is just not matching the money. 3 years left at a $6 million cap hit. I mean, that's 3 in a row. Kyle Okposo, 3 left at $6 million. Milan Lucic, Jordan Staal, out of those 3, it's no question. He has the most promise still. I mean, he's older. I wouldn't say promise, but production. And he can still do something in a top 6 or top 9 role. But I think at $6 million over 3 years, the Carolina Hurricanes can do something else with that money. Chicago Blackhawks, again, no-brainer. I mean, if you're looking at their contracts, like Zach Smith, sure, maybe a couple others that are, I don't know, borderline, but Brent Seabrook, it's not even close. So Seabrook, 4 years left at a $6.875 million cap hit, 100%. That would be the compliance buyout for the Chicago Blackhawks. Eric Johnson, this one might be tough. Eric Johnson, he's grown with Colorado. But I do think that it would be smart to use him for the compliance buyout. I think he's a 3 years at $6 million cap hit, so a lot of sixes here. But yeah, $6 million for 3 more years. That's too much against the cap. And if they make this move, the Colorado Avalanche would definitely have to get another defenseman on that right side, because then they would definitely be weaker on that right side. It'd be Cale Makar, and then after that, it's pretty thin. Alex Wenberg for the Blue Jackets. You know what? Dubinsky's been MIA, and he's got some term left on that contract, I think, or he's got 1 year left, I think, after this year, maybe 5.85. So that's Dubinsky. Wenberg, though, has got 3 years at 4.9, and Blue Jackets have been flaming this guy. And he's been super inconsistent. He had 1 good year, and he's just kind of fell off. So Wenberg could be it, but if Dubinsky is not on IR and he's taken up that cap, I think it could be Dubinsky for that last year. Joe Pavelski, huge hot take here, potentially. I think it could be Cogliano as well, but Pavelski didn't have a good year, and $7 million for 2 more years. He's getting older. When you're talking about a 35-year-old, $7 million for 2 more years, that might be tough. We saw what happened with Patrick Marleau. Yes, Pavelski, I think, at this age, I mean, a little bit younger, of course, too. So, I don't know. I think it is risky. You might want to take a page out of the Toronto Maple Leafs and what they did with Marleau, but use the compliance buyout. Could be an option for the Stars, and they'd still have a stacked forward group. Justin Abdelkader, I think this is a no-brainer, other than maybe Franz Nielsen, but Abdelkader's got that extra year. Yes, a smaller cap hit at 4.6, or 4.25, and I think overall, yeah, Franz Nielsen is over $1 million more, but that extra year does make a difference, and I think Stevie Y is going to choose in that sense. James Neal with the Edmonton Oilers, I think this is a no-brainer again. Some fans might be like, okay, why are we going to buy out James Neal if we're just going to overpay a different free agent? Okay, well, that's something to consider, but I do think James Neal had a good year, but you don't want to jump over that and be like, okay, let's keep him. So I do think if you get that option of a compliance buyout, use it on James Neal. You would escape completely from that mess of a contract signed with Milan Lucic. Sergei Bobrovsky, this would be, and this is why I wore the Panthers jersey, this would be a really tough one. They could go Stralman. That contract's tough. Stralman's slower, but he was decent defensively. You could go a guy like Mike Matheson. There's a few options there with the Florida Panthers, but man, Bobrovsky, $10 million, I think it just makes the most sense. Another goalie. Like, it's tough because these goalies have been good. Jonathan Quick's been great, but 3 years left, $5.8 million cap hit. I just think it makes the most sense for the LA Kings. Drew Doughty would be a huge hot take. Dustin Brown only has 2 years left, and he's been okay. So I don't think that's worth it at this point. It'd be Jonathan Quick for me, or you go all in and clear that Doughty contract out, which I just don't see the LA Kings doing. Zach Parise, I think this one makes the most sense. I think they're confident with Ryan Suter over the next few years, and that still might be a tough contract. They're the same age. Basically, they're the same cap hit, same term left. They both have, I think, 5 years left. It's real tough. They tried to lose Parise in a trade with the Islanders. I think they would use him with the compliance buyout. Karl Alzner, I think that's the way to go. I mean, Marc Bergevin might surprise all of us. He surprised all of us with that PK Subban trade. He surprised us before, so he could go all in with like Carey Price. I don't think he would do Weber, but maybe Carey Price. That would be a crazy contract, but it's a compliance buyout, and Montreal has the funds. But Karl Alzner is the one that makes more sense, I would say, right now. You'd be clearing out a $4.625 million cap hit for 2 more years. I think that makes a lot of sense, and Carey Price, for me, is still a top 10 goalie in the league. Shea Weber is probably still a top 25 defenseman. He's up there, top 30 defenseman. So, yeah, they're tough contracts, but for the right now, if the Montreal Canadiens are trying to jump into the playoffs, it would be Karl Alzner. Kyle Turris, it's been a tough contract right from the get-go. Coming to Nashville, he just hasn't met those expectations. 4 years left after this, $6 million. You got to move on. Cory Schneider, yeah, they'll cut ties 100% if they get the opportunity. 2 years left at the $6 million cap hit. He's been jumping up and down. AHL, he played a few good games. Other than that, the Devils are trying to move on, and this would be the way to move on. Andrew Ladd, 100%. I don't think there's any doubt for Islanders fans. This is one of the no-brainer ones. I think for Ladd, when they signed that contract, a $7 million cap hit, it didn't match from the start. It definitely doesn't match now. So Andrew Ladd would be the compliance buyout for the Islanders. Henrik Lundqvist and Mark Stahl, those are 2 options. Brendan Smith, it's going to be one of those 3 in my opinion. The Rangers are going to be one of the for sure teams to use a compliance buyout. I think 20, 25 teams at least could use a compliance buyout. Most teams might. So I think, yeah, there's going to be a couple teams that don't. The Rangers don't have to think twice about it. They just have to decide who they're going to use it on. I mean, Henrik Lundqvist has 1 year left at 8.5, but they've had so much respect, and it's been a career with the Rangers. Mark Stahl, over 5. Brendan Smith, over 4. For me, I think the one you go with is Brendan Smith, because I think just the respect level for Mark Stahl and Lundqvist is there. Mark Stahl and Lundqvist combining of, $13 million, but it's done after this upcoming year. So I think go Brendan Smith if you're given the opportunity. Bobby Ryan with the Sens, 2 years left at $7.25 million. I think it's just a smart move. And yes, Bobby Ryan came back from his break from hockey for the personal reasons. And I do think it was a great story to come back and get a hat trick, but I do think he's going to move on, and they're going to use that compliance buyout. The Flyers, this one's a tough one. I mean, I don't like that contract for Hayes. I don't like that contract for Voracek, but I think JVR is the way to go, just because I think JVR doesn't fit as well as the other 2. I mean, Kevin Hayes has been pretty solid up the middle, and Voracek has always fit well with the Flyers, even though that cap hit is scary. I mean, we're talking about is it 5 years left or 4 years left? I think it's 4 years left for Voracek. Over $8 million. So that doesn't match, obviously. JVR, 3 years left out of this, 7 per. I do think you move on from that. He just hasn't matched that. And if he's playing third line minutes, why does that make any sense? So Kevin Hayes, I don't think they would do him. Even though the thing with Hayes is, like, I think that contract could be the worst by the end of it. But right now, he's filling a role for the Flyers. And right now, I think JVR is the guy you move on from. Jack Johnson, I think this one's a no-brainer. I mean, there's other options like Hornquist or Bustad, but Bustad only has 1 year left. Hornquist's contract is going to get even scarier in my opinion, but Jack Johnson, it's what makes sense right now. I think it's 3 years left, I believe, for Jack Johnson at $3.25 million, so you move on from him. The San Jose Sharks, man, Doug Wilson needs to make calls. He needs to talk to other teams. When we're talking about Shea Weber, like that contract, Brent Burns' contract is even worse. And obviously Burns has been more productive on the offensive side of things with Weber's, I would say, not inconsistencies, but injury issues overall. Brent Burns, 35 years of age, 5 years left, $8 million. So I don't know. I think it's Brent Burns, but Karlsson, I mean, I just feel like Karlsson is more of a risk, but it could be more of a reward if you keep him because he is significantly younger. He's like 6 years younger, and yes, it's a higher cap at $11 million, but Brent Burns has still got 5 years left. Like, we're talking about 5 years here. Martin Jones maybe as well. Like, I think Martin Jones could be in conversation, but I feel like you could trade him for another struggling goalie, so Doug Wilson just needs to start making calls. St. Louis Blues, Alex Steen, I think this one makes the most sense. 1 year left at a $5.7 million cap hit. I think if you make that move and then try to trade Jake Allen, there's actually a real possibility they can keep Alex Pietrangelo, but those two moves would have to happen. Yanni Gourde and Ryan McDonough. Those are the two only options for the Lightning that I see. I mean, outside of that, there's no one else. I think the Lightning might even stand pat. But with McDonough, I think you've got Foote coming in. Chernak has filled a big role. Sergachev keeps developing. Hedman's there. That could be your top four. So I think they could move on from McDonough. Possibly. I mean, when we're talking about over $7 million and McDonough's already 30, it could get scary on the second half. Yanni Gourde, for me, I mean, what was it, 30 point? Like, he was well off of his original numbers from the last couple of years, and we're talking about over $5 million. So I included Yanni Gourde, but I don't know if they would do that. I think they might expect Yanni Gourde to have a bounce back year, but McDonough might be the option there. Nah, they're not compliant. No compliance buyout on Kyle Dubas. But the thing is, the Leafs don't have a player that they would use a compliance buyout on. It just doesn't make any sense. Andreas Johnsson, Kerfoot, no. Like, Tavares, I saw that, and no. But the thing is, for Kyle Dubas, he could acquire a guy from a team. I mean, he could help a team like St. Louis, Jake Allen, do a compliance buyout there, and then get another asset coming in. San Jose Sharks might need some help. Or the Chicago Blackhawks, if they obviously use that compliance buyout on Brent Seabrook, they might also want to move on from Zach Smith, and the Leafs can get an additional asset from the Blackhawks or whichever team they help. So that's why I have Dubas in here. Dubas, make your magic. Louis Eriksson, no question here. 2 years left, a $6 million cap hit. He just hasn't fit. It's the guy that all Canucks fans want to move on from, so there you go. Paul Stastny, 1 year left at a $6.5 million cap hit. He struggled with injuries. I don't think there's anyone else on Vegas you really see where it's a buyout option at this point. You got your solid top six, in my opinion, and you'd probably have to fill a role where Paul Stastny's at, but you have other players that can step up. But 1 year left, 6.5. I think that 6.5 for next year could be huge to clear up, and I think Stastny's the option. Richard Panik. I mean, the Capitals don't have a lot of options. They could go Panik. They could go Hagelin. I mean, Nick Jensen, but they're not high cap hits. So Panik, 3 more years at a $2.75 million cap hit. It makes some sense. I think they would just go that if they were to go compliance buyout. Brian Little. I think this one's an obvious one if he's healthy. If they want to open up that space for a guy on that defense group, they need to clear up a forward. Brian Little's getting older. 4 years left at a $5.29 million cap hit, I believe. So move on from Brian Little. I think it's time. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about my picks in the comment section. Please subscribe if you are new. Smash that like button. This was John from Untitled Hockey. I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.